guys, Eddie back with Couch Talk. Welcome back to the show. If it's your first time with me, welcome to the show. Guys, please hit like, please hit subscribe, turn your notifications on. It really helps me out with the algorithm, and I need all the help I can get right now. And I promise if you stick with me, I will earn your viewership. I want to take some time to talk about the spy balloon that China sent over to America, because it's gotten a lot bigger than I thought it would. It's turned into a very political thing, and I'm noticing that basically everyone who voted for Joe Biden, everyone who's a Democrat for the most part, is rallying behind their fearless leader and is trying to defend Joe Biden's decision. And everyone who didn't, of course, is trying to attack his decision. Well, it really shouldn't be a political thing. It should just be able to be analyzed for itself, right? And I think it was in the beginning, and I think what happened was after we analyzed it and realized that it wasn't a good decision, then we had to respond to defend Joe. And that's always a dangerous situation. And what I've noticed too is a lot of times the response to this spy balloon, to letting the spy balloon traverse the entirety of the continent before shooting it down, the answer I'm getting from a lot of Democrats is, well, it happened 2 or 3 times during Trump's administration, which of course we know now that Trump didn't have any knowledge of that. And, you know, his General Mad Dog didn't tell Trump about the spy balloons during his administration because he felt Trump was too aggressive. Can you imagine that? Somebody named Mad Dog thought that Trump was too aggressive, which is ironic, of course, because Trump's basically the only president in recent history that didn't add a war to the mix. But you know, there's another can of worms to be opened there. Was that a treasonous act? Possibly. You know, there's something to be said about a leader who doesn't engender enough trust among his chief executives, his chief managers underneath him, to receive all of the information. So that's a whole nother can of worms. But you know what? There's a more fundamental problem here. You know, I really don't like whataboutisms. And for all of those, you know, who out there looking at this video, for all of my audience, if you get into a debate and your gut feeling tells you to go to a whataboutism, right? Like if somebody says Joe Biden screwed up and your first reaction is, well, Trump did also, or even, well, Trump did worse, then you're already in a bad spot, right? Like if your defense is somebody else messed up also, you're kind of in a rough spot, right? So just understand that. Take heed to your own words, right? Like kind of just, you know, take stock in the fact that you're using as your defense the fact that somebody else also messed up, right? It reminds me when I was like 4 years old. Well, he started it, you know, like you're in bad shape when that's where you go. But let's talk about the balloon for what it is, right? Like ignoring the politics of it, ignoring who made more mistakes or why. Let's talk about why this was a mistake. Number one, I've heard the counter accusation that this balloon wasn't important, that it couldn't possibly achieve any information that could not already be gleaned. This is a factual error. The balloons are often part of a multi-layered surveillance system. Now, in the Navy, I wasn't given all of the information about every weapons platform. I had a lot of information at my fingertips, and I do not know this particular spy balloon in its, you know, totality. But I can tell you that often, in addition to just visual equipment, they also contain LiDAR. They contain like RF equipment that can read electromagnetic interference. They can contain a lot of information gathering tools that would not normally be available to something like a drone or a satellite. Not only that, it has a lot more time that it can spend on each individual area. Like, so if a drone or a satellite comes across the Earth, it'll sweep across the entire arc of our continent in the Earth in a very short span of time. And yes, it can take a bunch of photos in that amount of time, but they're still shots and they don't really get a lot of information. It just gives you general structure locations, which is important enough if you're going to strike targets, but it doesn't give you things like traffic, like populations in certain centers. It won't tell you things like the amount of traffic that travels along corridors. It won't tell you necessarily where the nuclear arms are, unless you already know from other information. It won't give you a lot of information. But the spy balloon is just going to like slowly pan across the entire continent, and it has this huge range of view, right? Basically, from where they were sweeping across Montana to North Carolina, they could basically see the entire continent. By sweeping up across Alaska, across our continent, they basically saw our entire nation without any trouble. And now I've also heard the counter accusation, well, we zapped them, we signal jammed them, they couldn't get any information out. There is absolutely no effing way that we could be sure that we stopped all of the signal. First of all, remember, again, this is part of a multi-layered platform. A lot of information can be relayed to very short line of sight things, right? They could have had drones and other things soar by while this was going on. They could have had information shoot straight up to the satellite without any interference to get in between it. We cannot be sure that they did not transmit information, and it's almost certain that they did, in fact. We didn't even hear about this until it hit Montana, publicly. I don't know if we knew before. We maybe did, we maybe didn't. If we did, there's really no reason why it would not have just been blown out of the sky, right as it reached Alaska. I don't know why Canada didn't shoot it down. Montana would have been a great place. There's like 11 people that live in Montana. It's cold as hell up there, there's a million different places that we should have shot it between Montana and North Carolina. By the way, an additional benefit of shooting it down over land is that you can recapture all of the components without any of them getting swept out to sea or lost in the depths of the ocean, or getting carried away by a current or a tide. I don't know if we got it. I hope we did, but there's nothing about the water that would magically rescue this thing from getting destroyed when it hit land, when it hit water. It's still going to take the same relative destruction force. It's still going to reach its terminal velocity. Everything like that is going to remain the same. If we're going to be able to piece together the components, then we're going to piece them together. And if we're going to piece them together in the ocean, we're going to piece them together. It's about the same thing. So that's that. Now, we definitely should have shot this thing down if for no other reason than to explain to the world that we don't allow spies to run across our country with impunity. That's just the nature of things. I don't think people that think that we should have let this whole thing float across our country for a week, I don't think you're accurately estimating the psychological impact that having a spy balloon over your nation has on people. I don't know if you guys realize this, but this isn't necessarily just a signal finding mission, right? It's not necessarily just an intelligence gathering mission, necessarily. They can have payloads, right? Those balloons can carry payloads. Not frequently. It's not the primary purpose of a balloon that flies around in the stratosphere, but it can happen. So, what if it did? Then, they just drop something on us. No signal jammer is going to stop a missile, right? And maybe we can stop some ordnance before it reaches the ground. Maybe we can't. But I think this was a test. I think it was a test to see what we would do. And if it happened during Trump's time and we didn't notice it, or we did and we didn't say anything, then shame on us. Shame on us. But that doesn't make this okay. And we should stop jumping to a whataboutism anytime something comes up. Let me know what you guys think. I think it was absolutely ridiculous the way this went down. I've reached out to basically every active duty personnel that I know. And I knew a lot because I was in the military. I was in the Navy. And I know a ton of guys. Not a single person Not a single person was of the opinion that we should have let the thing traverse the entirety of the nation. Not a single person. So, I mean, that isn't to say that they're all right, but, you know, if not a single dissenting voice exists, and like, we're talking about 100 people or so that I know in the military that I still maintain relationships with today. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll catch you next time on Couch Talk.